Oh, and we are live. Yes. Hello, everybody and anybody. Let's look at it that way. How are you doing, guys? Hope you're doing well. Yes, Ian. I do believe you've jumped right in, mate.
How are you doing?
How are you doing, Ian? All right.
Yeah, good, mate. You?
Yes, mate. Yes.
All ready for it?
Kind of. I've still got a little bit of sorting out to do, but the finer details are in play. There's been a little bit of hiccups along the way, but I think we're still going to be able to do it. I think everything's fine. Yes. Good. So about Hull, what's going on at the Hull end? Sorry.
Yeah, well, everything's in place. Like I say, the tabletop sale, we've got 25 tables at the moment. Still room for more. Barbecue is all set up. The room will be set up Saturday morning, all ready for your arrival. So yeah, good.
Mate, I've been in the background, secretly scared about this in many ways now. But I know it can be done. It will be done. It sounds like a bit of a prayer, that. But I'm looking now, and physically, I've been riding all week. I've got the stiffest calves. You could play the steel drums on my calves right now, honestly. And I know, I don't know what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. All week, it was supposed to drop in temperature and likelihood of rain.
Yeah.
I don't know how that is now. I could do with it a little bit cooler than it is right now, to be fair with you, because it is absolutely roasting where I'm at. What's the weather like where you're at, mate?
Yeah, for the weekend here, it's overcast, but quite warm, but overcast. So I think you'll be all right.
Coming in. Mike, hi Mike, how you doing? I wonder. Thank you very much for jumping on. There's the Binkser. How you doing, Binkser? I'm absolutely sweating here. I am serious. Wow. So listen, mate, what's been going on in Hull? Any updates? Any news?
Not a great deal. One of the survivors is a bit poorly in hospital.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's got no, nothing serious. Nothing for us to worry about. But she won't be with us on Saturday now, unfortunately. She comes out of hospital tomorrow, but she's not going to be well enough to come on Saturday. However, there's 4 survivors going to be there on Saturday. A couple of them are doing a stall. So yeah, they'll be there in support of us all.
Nice one, mate. I'm hoping to be able to have a little bit of a chat.
Yeah.
With anyone and everyone, if I can.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely. Absolutely. We had a meeting last night to verify, to make sure we were all ready for you all coming up and making sure that everything was in place. One thing that did come across to us, what I haven't actually given a great thought, is your route into Hull, really.
Yeah, at this moment in time, I'm just using Google Maps, so I haven't precisely worked it out as such.
Because what I was going to do is I'm going to get somebody to come and meet you on the outskirts of Hull as you're entering Hull.
Okay.
But I'll have a chat with you about that later, just on the final details. But so they were going to come out and meet you to get you through Hull, because it's, to be honest, at the moment, the traffic is chaos because we're having a brand new road built through the city.
Yeah.
So it's sending everything all over the place. It's an absolute nightmare. So if you followed Google Maps, you'd end up in a right snarl. So we're going to try to avoid that for you.
Mate, that'd be fantastic. Any help? What's the most likely route then that would?
Well, it all depends on which road you enter Hull in. So what I was going to do is, if I can find out from you, we'll do this off air. But if we get the route you're coming into Hull, we'll set up a point where the guys will meet you. My brother's going to be one of them. So he's there. He knows who you are. I think you met him at the match. They're going to meet you, and then we'll sort it out from there. I just think it'll be a lot easier than you following Google Maps or whatever, because that's going to take you down the completely wrong way.
Yeah.
And I just thought, after all that,
that's not going to be the weak link here. You know what I mean? I've done all this organising and I've just relied on my phone. And we know notoriously what they do, don't they? They take the weirdest places.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting, to say the least.
That's why. I mean, I've been looking at the routes in and out of, trying to predict which route you're actually going to take, and there's that many coming into Hull, and you're finding that because of the A63 coming into Hull and the main route through Hull, which would be the one you take, it's a building site halfway through, and it's a right nightmare. And if you start going off it, you're going to get lost. And I thought, right, easy way for me to do it is to get somebody to come out in a sport vehicle and meet you.
Fantastic, mate. Fantastic. So can we remind people, mate, particularly in terms of how this affects you, what we're actually doing this for? Yeah.
It's for the survivors of child grooming in Hull, part of the Operation Marksman, after a 2-year investigation by Humberside Police, or Blunderside as we call them. They arrested 34 people. No charges were brought against them. The case was closed and just left the girls to sort their own lives out, really. And we started to campaign to look at getting the operation reopened and reinvestigated. The police have just not really helped in any way, just not interested in anything. We've tried to negotiate with them, ask them for meetings, invited them to our public meetings. They've turned us down every time. So we've decided that the money we raise from such things like Saturday from the tabletop and your cycle ride, we've got a ska night coming up, we've got a psychic night coming up, we've got a local singer going to do a day, and all these people are giving their time up for free. We've got a great band in 3 weeks time on the 8th of July, which is a ska night, as I said, and we've got one of the local bands, 418 Two Tones. They're giving up their time for free to come and support us, and we're hoping to raise enough money to get legal representation for the girls, get somebody with a legal mind, be a barrister, solicitor, to look over the evidence we've got, or the girls have got, and see if they can find anything within there to take this case back to the CPS above the threshold they're saying it hasn't reached. Now, even Jim Gamble has turned round on the Sky reports and said this case is clearly above the threshold. Yet the police or the CPS have just said no. We all have our thoughts and our suspicions as to why they're doing this. We all know what the reason being. It's integration, it's multicultural, it's all this, and it's obvious by the known perpetrators of these crimes. They're all from the same community, and is that why the police are pursuing it? And we're not a group, we're not an anti-Muslim group, we're not fascists in any way, we're not. None of this, absolutely not. All we're concerned about is the girls and getting them justice. And whoever the perpetrators are, not only through Operation Marksman, but also the other ones that are happening in the city at the time, now in the history. We've got a young girl who came forward to me. I say young girl, she's 28, but she's young to me. I've been in contact with her the last 3 weeks. She came to a meeting. She was telling me about her story. Say she was 28 when she was put in care at 12. She was abused. So we're going back 16 years. So this is how long it's been going on in Hull, and nobody in Hull was aware of any of this. So we're hoping that by getting legal representation, they can find something within the evidence to get this highlighted, get Operation Marksman reopened. If not, we're quite prepared to carry on to do a private prosecution. That's cost. The cost on that can be God knows what. But if that's what it takes,
mate, we need to go back to like ground zero here. This is why I've left this comment from Wanda. Thank you, Wanda. Amazing to hear your support is still for survivors. Great stuff. Always has been, ever since I covered certain issues. But looking at this from the perspective of a survivor, you mentioned there's going to be a lovely event happening at Saturday where I'll be joining at some point. All kinds of things going on there. Great fun for all members of the family as well. Nothing negative.
Absolutely. It's not just for adults.
It doesn't matter who you are, what colour, what creed. You're
more than absolutely not.
Down, and I'm sure you'll be informed on all types of things and just have a great day. Now, these guys, because of that, there's a certain element where these guys are put, these survivors, because of their choices, because the choice to actually attend and work with the likes of yourself, let's face it, because of the survivor itself, for me, mate, is paramount with any form of abuse. It's not about the individual because of their race, because of their ethnicity, because it's regardless of that. The majority of people I've spoke to, and the same with you, mate, you don't do that to kids. Kids are finding it very difficult in life to kind of exist now, everything, because the bar's been changed on so many levels. They're being sexualized and all types of issues concerning the younger generation growing up. But when you've looked at a survivor, mate, when you spoke to a survivor, then when you offset that with the police saying, well, there's no evidence, that is what really gets me, is that how these guys sleep at night. Even if it was the case that they couldn't get justice that time, they should be saying to these ladies, these girls, we're going to get them. We know there's something in it. We're going to get them. It's not because of their ethnicity. It's because of what they want to do as some form of what we call predators. Doesn't matter who they are. So sorry for that little bit of a rant, mate, but I just wanted to bring you
crack on, mate. Crack on.
Survivors that are going to be there. You know what I mean? And that is ultimately what all this is about. It's about accountability for the survivors. And the last time we spoke as well, you were talking about how well mentally some of these ladies now, they're moving on.
Oh, absolutely.
As individuals as well.
Yeah, like I said on the last one, since I met them, 6 months ago, excuse me, the confidence, and I mean, like the young girl who spoke at the rally, you know, absolutely amazing courage. She was 3 foot and a peanut, and she got up on that podium and she spoke, and I was so proud of her that day. And I'm proud of every single one of them for their courage, their determination, and I'm hoping I'm among hope, and I know, I do speak to them regular, and the courage that's come from these girls lately is just unbelievable, because they do now realize that people do believe what they've said, because that's how it was in the beginning. They've said to me, we just didn't believe we were, nobody believed us.
Yeah.
And that's how it felt. They felt so alone. Nobody believed them. There was nothing. Nobody was interested in their story. But now they are, and that's us, and we will keep fighting for them.
It's got to come back again. It's silly that we have to kind of come here and talk about this and almost be apologetic about it. It's abuse. It's a pattern that's clearly forming, and in many, probably majority of cases, the women do not want this to happen. Some may talk about lifestyle choices and lifestyles. There may be a certain percentage of lost individuals that actually relish a lifestyle like that. And I don't want to say that in any way. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to survivors, we've got to consider the actual pattern of the life. Now, what we're talking about here predominantly are normal, average girls, working class girls. Doesn't tend to be a lot of middle class that go through this particular style of abuse. I'm not saying middle class don't go through abuse. I'm sure they do in many ways. But particularly with what's going on with these ladies, they need to know that there are people that will stand up for them here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now we'll go back to how you initially felt at that time, mate, to kind of keep, rather than me rambling on, to keep you and your thoughts of why you set this up. And really, I know Operation Marksman and the info that you got, that, you know, they were dropping it, and you understood that this was wrong in so many ways. But initially, what was the first spark here that got you outraged?
Yeah, well, it was this guy, one of the Sky's exposures. It's funny. I was just showing somebody today because they were questioning me, and I said, "Here, just watch that." And this has been going on in my city, and I never knew nothing about it. When I was speaking to people, nobody knew anything about it. And I say we were just discussing it, and I said, somebody needs to do something. Somebody said to me, "Well, why don't you do something?" Yeah. So I set the Facebook group up and see who wanted to join me with a fight. And yeah, here we are now, 5,000 members later, and a rally. We've, you know, been doing the flash demos in the city over the last 2 or 3 months, just turning up at random places, train stations, shopping centres, things like that. The public support is getting bigger and bigger. I mean, I couldn't sleep on at night knowing what I know and not actually trying to do something. You know, I'll do what I can, and I'll keep fighting as long as it takes to get the authorities to turn around and go, okay, well, let's have another look at this. Or, you know, just some, I don't know how to, some recognition to the girls that this actually happened. They've been given no reasons why. You know, I mean, go back, one of the girls was arrested for, I can't remember the exact wording she was put for being arrested, kicking off basically because they were ranting at the police because they wouldn't do nothing. You know, one of them turned up after being attacked and after being beaten at the police station. I think I've mentioned this before. Turned up at the police station after being beaten, after being attacked, raped, and the girl behind the counter at the police station said, "You'll have to come back tomorrow. This is too serious, and we need a senior officer, and there's nobody on duty. Come back tomorrow." And that's what she was told.
Well, this goes back to what you're saying, mate, about if these girls feel that the major pillars that, you know, of authority that they should be listening to, and they respect enough to actually try and get some justice and get accountability. Yeah. If they're turning around and saying, well, there's no evidence, you know,
yeah,
I can supply all the messages and phone calls and maybe even CCTV footage of someone robbing my house. They know the guy, but then they come and tell me that there's no evidence. And that's almost like what it feels. It feels that you've pretty much got the hand in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
And with a bit of due diligence, you would be able to, but there's a reason why, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it kind of hurts when it comes to survivors, the fact that they are now silent victims with this. And we've got a lovely lady, Wendy.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
my mum died when I was 14. I was an easy target for them. So it's a question of the playing on the vulnerabilities of young girls anyway, you know what I mean? And the same again, lifestyle choices might have gone off the rails a little bit. Someone might clock that as a vulnerability. Boom, they're in there, feed to all them vulnerabilities, and off you go.
But it's a vulnerable one. It's a vulnerable one that we need to protect.
Engineering. Oh, she's not there right now. But grooming the thing, mate. I'll let you go shortly. But grooming, this is what a lot of people sometimes don't understand, because they just tend to think abuse might be someone who's just perpetrated the crime or has just been stalking someone and just, you know, whatever, just on a canal bank or whatever, or, you know, the nasty stuff you hear. Grooming is a very different type of crime, but very often is not acknowledged with abuse, even though grooming happens every day of the week on so many different levels.
Yeah.
And the reason why I go there with it is because even when I talk to friends of mine, Ian, And I'll talk about sex abuse, and they'll get it straight away, the usual names that will come up. You talk about grooming, and in many ways, they don't correlate the two together to actually understand on a drip level and on a psychological level the impact that not only grooming has, but then the abuse in terms of what they may have to encounter as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
probably this is why I'm stuck on this more than anything else. I don't know, because abuse is abuse. I've interviewed many survivors in many walks of life, many different nationalities as well, that have gone through exactly the same thing. But there's something about the act of grooming which is fucking low and bang out of order, when you're using the art of manipulation and exploitation, and knowing what you're doing to gain sexually and make money as well.
Well, it's calculated what they do. It's a process. It's not straight in. It's done over a period of time, gaining their trust, treating them to gifts, food, drink, drugs, whatever it may be. A new phone, collecting them from school. I'll give you a lift home. It's raining. Gaining the trust, and it's that. It's calculated. It's not as if it's a a random attack. It is calculated. You know, they'll pinpoint the date of when this will happen. You know, they'll work it out, and they're very, very clever people, and that's how they're getting away with it, because it's calculated. You know, one of the big things with Operation Marksman was the police are saying there's no electronic evidence, which obviously is bullshit. Sorry, but you know, we've had historical cases before electronics were any part of the norm, but it's still, the fact is, it's there. There was one thing that was somebody pinpointed to me a while back now, is one of the areas where these girls were actually taken is near the Humber Bridge. Now, on the approach road to there is a ANPR camera for speeding, or for monitoring vehicles going onto the bridge. The girls have given dates, times, and registration numbers. Why can't they look through that and say, you're right, that car did travel through that at that time of night on that date, etc., etc.? Have they looked into that? You know, there's so much they can have done.
I'm sorry, mate, but I assume that is being done.
No.
I assume that they're going to.
If it has, they've ignored it, because, you know, like I say, the girls have given times, dates, places. One of the girls, who, she doesn't actually live in Hull, she's from afar. I won't go into details, but she was actually trafficked into Hull, to the gang in Hull, by another gang from another city, and they have to come. They come over the Humber Bridge to Hull. She's given dates, times, etc., etc. So why haven't they checked if that car did travel across that bridge at midnight?
I'm flabbergasted here, mate. Yeah. I tell you what, though, you have provided a very good way of bringing in this lovely young lady that I'd love you to meet, Ian. And you may decide to want to work with her in the future, particularly when it comes to the police. She's had many of dealings herself. She's an independent journalist. She's also university studying law. I think she's already, I mean, I'm not going to speak of her life. I'm not Eamon Holmes here by any means, but Janaea, how we diddling?
Hello, I'm good. How are you guys?
Hi, Janaea.
Janaea, this is Ian O'Kare. Ian O'Kare, this is Janaea.
I've heard about you.
Good. You've read about me or heard about me? Is that good or bad?
All good things, all good.
All good.
No, she's been looking at one or two of the videos, to be fair, of what we've, you know, the interviews that we've had, and particularly the march, and then particularly with the ride coming up. And like I say, going on from the police element, this is a good time to bring Janaea in, because Janaea will express totally when it comes to the wrong conduct by the police and police looking the other way. That is pretty much a bone of contention with Janaea. Hence, Janaea's just setting up a new website. But particularly, before we get to that, Janaea, in terms of Hull, how do you regard what has gone on there, the way it's been covered, and where it's pretty much been left now?
Well, to be honest, I'm not really surprised to hear about what's happened in Hull, because this isn't just a localized thing. This isn't just happening in one part of the country. This is happening in Manchester. I think Manchester's one of the most famous places for the grooming gangs. We have a real big issue with it in Rochdale. There's actually a case I'm following at the moment, which I might talk about in a second. Then obviously there's Rotherham. So as much as it's being dealt with by different forces, because I think people forget we haven't just got one massive police force. It makes no sense. We should just have one big police force. They're different territorial forces, yet they're all acting the same. They're all doing the same type of things. They might try and prosecute one or two kinds of cases. Even then, are they putting the effort in my opinion? Not really. They'll do things such as ban the public from attending the hearings, which happened in one of the cases that I'm following. And there's obviously a cover-up. People can't say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, you just hate Muslims, because that's one of the things people like to say to shut it down. There is a cover-up going on. You've even got people like Maggie Oliver talking about it. The media are talking about it, or they did talk about it. It's come out in reports such as the Operation Augusta report. So to me, it's not a surprise. It's just something else to be absolutely sickened by.
Where do you think it's going to go, Janelle, if they keep doing what they're doing, as in suppressing it? I mean, we've just heard there, with an ounce of intelligence and a little bit of diligence, if the ladies have told you they've been trafficked from point A to point B, if they've told you maybe what road that they've used, if we then know that they've got cameras that can identify the car via the registration plate, why is that an over-assumption to believe that they should have done that as a form of investigation to corroborate what has actually been said or not? But it turns out that they may not have. Can you explain why that would be? Is that a different force thing, or is it just a question of something else?
I'd say it's just negligence. The strange thing is, everyone's heard about negligence, but the law on negligence with the police is slightly different to what people might think it might be. Now, when you guys were talking a few minutes ago about the number plates, I was thinking, and I had this conversation with my friend the other day, there's so many things that if I had the powers the police have, I could do. I could solve so many investigations. I'm sure all of us could. You hear about these sort of private security teams and investigators, and they're doing a way better job than any of the police forces in the country. So where do I think it'll go? Well, I think it'll just continue the way it is. I think girls will keep being abused, and the small number of people who do talk about it and speak up about it will continue to keep being called far-right racists and Nazis and all these buzzwords. I know you're probably hoping for me to say something more positive, but I just don't see people getting as angry about this as they should be. I know people are a lot softer these days than they used to be back when we were cavemen, to use an extreme example, because we live a lot more comfortable lives. But as far as I'm concerned, if you can't get angry about the most heinous crimes happening to the most vulnerable in our society, what will you get angry about? Absolutely nothing at all. And I also think there's this disconnect that people think, oh, it's really terrible. You see a lot of violent films and sex and things like that on TV these days, so people are disconnected from the actual act. So you hear the term rape, you hear the term trafficking, you hear assault, but you don't actually feel it. You don't actually really truly think of how bad and awful that must be to experience, and how much of a terrible person you must be to actually commit these types of crimes. So I definitely think it's a sort of disconnect, but also I just think that people are very selfish, and I think people largely do not care. That's why I think, to an extent, there's an issue with politics, and that's why I decided to train to be a lawyer instead, because you've got more of an ability to take direct action. I can take a client, take them to court, and I can actually try and get results for that person. I'm not fully qualified yet, I should just specify, but we're in the process, it's going well. Whereas with political solutions, you need people to care. Unfortunately, the grooming gangs have been exposed. A lot of people do know about them, and people still aren't doing anything. And I think at this point, the people who don't know about them largely are not going to do anything about it. I mean, I had a friend, very upper middle class, lives down south. She'd never heard of the grooming gangs, but also, it went one ear in one ear, out of the other. that's not somebody who will be joining the fight to try and stop this type of crime.
Yeah. Ian, anything you'd like to say there, mate?
No, I think it's pretty well, to be honest.
Maybe I look at this emotionally. Sorry, Ian. Sorry,
no, I was just going to say, looking at all the evidence that I've seen from one of the survivors, and me as a layman, look at it and go, there's the crime, there's the name, there's the address, there's the car registration number. That's where he lives. That's who his brother is. That's who his sister is. That's who his wife is. That's who his kids are. All this information there, and I'm thinking, what more do they want? There's the photos with the girls with the bruises on them. Text message they've received on the phones. Yet the police are still saying there's no evidence, no electronic evidence. But the photographs of phones with the messages on that, you've lost me lots of money. My friends want to, with a white girl, things like that. These are actually public knowledge. These are on the Sky report. How can they not say that this evidence is there? That's what I'm just astounded by. And like I said right at the beginning, is it because they don't want to upset the apple cart?
Abuse is abuse, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
that is ultimately what we're talking about here. It's a can of worms. I mean, I've spoke about this before, and probably all of you agree, maybe you won't. I can't believe how abuse can be politicized. So because of it, you then have survivors that are silent victims because they're on the wrong side of the political fence.
Yeah.
And I was just about to say before you spoke, on an emotional level, when you look into the eyes of a survivor, you don't care what paradigm, you don't care what colour. It's abuse. When that life, that spirit has been turned round, has been violated and affected in such a way, it doesn't matter how old they are at this point. Anyone, even males, we've seen it all. But this one kind of niggles me because of the politicization of it, because we would rather not get to the bottom of this because it may do, or many other reasons. We tend to think that it's PC and they don't want to talk about it because it'll blow it wide open on a national level. Or generally, we have to talk about culturally what's going on within grooming, because that's the thing. These are the little slaps that, or side arguments rather, that will inevitably have to be spoke about with grooming because of the act, because it's a different thing than what we were normally used to in terms of abuse of a child. This is very prolonged, and the individuals that tend to be doing it have got such lack of regard for the individual, which tends to be statistically because they're white or because they follow a certain religion. But these are uncomfortable truths that correlate this grooming. So it's hard to understand whether it's a money-making business and the people high up are making money, so let's not talk about it, or whether there's so many different facets, but there's so many different facets to say, you better talk about this. That's why I asked the question, Jania. What's going to happen if it's not? Because to keep doing this, it's hard enough to talk about abuse anyway. But like I say, I can sit in front of my friends now and talk about someone who might have been a young lady that might have been raped on a canal. Boom, straight away, the emotionally connect with that story. If I talk about them being regularly groomed and trafficked all over the place, boom, something glazes over. And I don't know what it is. And it's not because of them not wanting to care. It's something about the story that makes them not want to fully grasp what a survivor might have to go through, being trafficked up and down. This is not one occasion on the canal. We're talking about fucking daily trips or whatever. We're talking about multiple men. We're talking about family members being sold. I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting myself worked up here, but Janaea, help me out because I won't be doing no ride if I don't slow down.
Yeah, try not to have a heart attack or anything like that.
What do you make of that? I mean, you know, in terms of why this gets shunted, and I know the obvious answer probably PC and, you know, liberalism,
Well,
and you'd rather blame everyone else.
The one thing I will say without steering the conversation onto certain individuals or certain topics is that certain people, high profile people, have spoken about this. And whilst they can't help that people tar them with a certain brush, because we've all been tarred with that brush, it's just a brush you get tarred with if you talk about this topic. The way they've conducted themselves and the selfish use of their copious amounts of resources has certainly not helped with this issue. It was always going to be controversial. It was always going to be sensitive. And these people have made this issue almost untouchable. They've actually, in my opinion, made this issue more controversial in the current day than it was when people first started trying to talk about it, to the point where it's almost impossible now. It's made it so that it completely... It's almost made it impossible for survivors to really get justice or find people to help them with this, because people don't want to touch it because of the
It's a beautiful
politicization of it.
isn't it?
Yeah.
That they've been able to use when you were actually scared of talking about something because of the political angle that may be thrown upon you. You know what I mean? And it's like, so that's going to be a tool to make someone not talk about them being treated the way they've been treated. So then all of a sudden, once they hit that ground, there's no accountability, there's no credence. It's like we could talk about Jimmy Savile, and so freaking should, and all the other nonsense that have been running around the, you know, these media outlets doing what they've been doing. Certainly out anyone. But it annoys the bleeding hell out of me when this becomes that sticky that we can't talk about it. And I'm going back to the survivors.
I do think, though, as well, as much as I'm criticising, you know, certain groups and individuals for not necessarily handling things the way they should have done, on the contrary, the crimes that we're talking about are so disgusting and repulsive. I have to try not to get angry about this, because it just infuriates me. That if you think that the conduct of certain individuals who talk about this is then an excuse for you to say, well, we shouldn't talk about this, and everybody who talks about this is a racist, fascist Nazi, then as far as I'm concerned, you're absolutely devoid of morals, and you're an enabler, because that's what they're doing. I mean, you guys will have heard people say, well, this person talks about... You don't even actually have to talk about Muslim grooming gangs. You don't have to talk about the politics of it. You can just talk about grooming gangs and you get shoved in that category. And they'll be like, well, you talk about Muslim grooming gangs or Islamic grooming gangs, but I don't hear you talking about white paedophiles or paedophiles from this group. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with having a specialism. There's nothing wrong with having a focus. We live in a society where everything's very specialized. So, for example, using law as an example, you'll have actions against the police lawyers. You'll have lawyers who specialise in family law. You'll have lawyers whose niche is commercial litigation in the commercial court in London. So I think there's nothing wrong in activism with having a focus, because, again, it's quite hard to affect change. So the more specialised you are, the more you focus on something, the more likely you are to be able to affect a little bit of change. And I think that's such a cop-out, low insult to use on people, that you're not allowed to focus on this particular thing, because then that means that you hate it. It's like people say to me about the police, well, you hate the police because you specialize on it. And it's like, well, do you say that to actions against the police lawyers because they have a specialism, because that's their specific area of law? Will they still be saying that to me then? Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of people to blame here, and it's one of those issues where you can have some give and take with certain things, you know, be open to different opinions. But quite frankly, I'm going to put this view out there. If you have an issue in any capacity with people talking about this matter, you are a problem, you are an enabler. And thinking about it again in legal terms, you're just assisting a crime by shutting down the people who want to talk about the crime. I'm actually more concerned with girls being raped and trafficked, to be quite honest, than racism. Obviously, I don't agree with racism. Is the racism there? Okay, we can talk about that. But kids are being raped here. Okay, can we have that as the focus? Because I'm starting to question your morals if you want to start going over here calling people.
Yeah, that's
right.
Right.
This is terrible and heinous, but the nature of what we're talking about, you know what I mean? I look at you, Janaea, and I think, you know what? Imagine if there was some guy that sensed Janaea's vulnerabilities and moved in when she was kind of at a level where she could be approached on that level, slowly but surely gaining trust, knowing this ain't a natural organic connection. This is what I want to do over the drip. I want to get this lady to do this, but how do I do it from point A? Then when you get to point Z, you know what I mean? You think that psychologically, in many ways, because of said vulnerabilities, we end up connecting with someone who we naively thought. So there's so much deceit going on with that. And like I say, I'm not trying to diminish abuse as such. And I can't even say normal abuse because there's nothing normal about it. I'm trying to certainly differentiate this because of the psychological acts it takes to break an individual down before any abuse actually is committed. And then we're talking about the violence between these individuals as well. These ain't 75-year-old men. You know what I mean? These are young lads who are militant in many ways, who will use that militancy to intimidate and extort very much, you know, young ladies who are vulnerable, who are trapped, who, because like you say, mate, the very cycle of it, who do I talk to? Well, if you can't talk to anyone, if no one's taking your story seriously, then you're going to get another phone call the next day with that guy that's going to want to get in touch with you again. And who do you talk to? Because no one's taking you seriously. So it's one big vicious circle that annoys the hell out of me because of the nature of the crime. You know what I mean? And like you say, I think everyone's got the right to specialise. If they've got it in the heart that this is about abuse, not particularly this is because I hate Muslims, because we've come across that, Janaea. We've come across all the dark and all this shizzle, you know, and we've been treated in negative ways because we've had the balls to go, well, you know what? I'll kind of stand here, you know, because I think what we demonstrated is that we didn't treat this as a paradigmal thing. This was like what I would regard, I don't know, you probably don't regard yourself, but as more centrist stroke libertarians looking at exactly the same thing as someone who proclaims himself to be right wing and going, dude, it don't matter about your politics. That is sick. It's nasty. And then you know, you don't get into an argument and then go up calling him far right. And I'm sorry, I'm just rambling here. Ian, you want to say anything, mate?
Yeah, what I've been trying to say for the last 10 minutes is if it wasn't for the likes of us that were trying to get this word out, you know, this is happening in your own communities. If everybody was, let's not talk about that, like Sinead says, if we stop talking about it, stop pushing, what is it? Is it going to be the norm in 10, 15, 20 years? It's allowed, it's just not talked about, it's gone away. It's, you know, is it not? It just baffles me that people haven't got the guts to turn up and go, hang on, that's wrong. It's irrelevant of who you are or what you are. That's wrong.
Well, it'll have the same effect with the public as it will with a survivor, won't it, mate?
Absolutely.
If you got the police and the police say, well, you know, why are you talking about this way, or we're not, you know, there's no evidence. Then when it comes to people who might see a news story and want to say something to the mate, oh, you know what, mate, I'm not being funny, but I'm looking at this now, and from what I could gather, these perpetrators tend to, you know, be the malicious side of what is regarded as Islam. Very much on their own, very much isolated, radicalized from what is the good, proper side of Islam. That's me working hard to actually say it. Not many people will say it like that. They're just going to go, these fucking Muslims, boom, you're straight in the room, look at you. All of a sudden, you're anti-Muslim. But if all you can see within this crime is perpetuated by people that tend to be the radicalized side of that.
Yeah.
Why can't they talk about it? Because it will have a rub-off effect with everyone who wants to have a conversation about it.
Exactly.
The issue is, sorry, go on.
No, go on. No, you stay.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say there's many ways of approaching this. So there is the political, cultural, ethnic issue. That's one angle you can approach it from. Then there's the angle which I think you guys are approaching it from, which is just this is just child abuse. Oh my God, people aren't doing anything. It should stop. And then I think a slightly unique approach to it that I've not seen anyone else take, which is the legal perspective. So I'm going after the police, because the police and social services are the ones who could stop this. If the police did their jobs properly, we wouldn't even be sat here. If the police did their jobs properly, certain activists, controversial activists, wouldn't exist. There wouldn't be this issue. Children would be being raped. Maggie Oliver wouldn't have her foundation, and we wouldn't have fetuses sat in police and state freezers waiting to be used in trials if they ever even get there. So my thinking on this is, yeah, you can go one step further and say it's the whole state, but again, it's this thing that I keep talking about with specialising. It's the police. The police are the ones in charge of solving crime. They're the ones in charge of investigating. They're also supposed to prevent crime. They're not preventing it. They're covering it up. They're facilitating it. It's disgusting and reprehensible. Most people can't even believe it happens when you tell them, because it sounds fake. It sounds like something off a story. I mean, with my local force, Greater Manchester Police, when I was a bit younger, I had this this guy that I was friends with, and I met some of his friends, seemed fine, didn't know them that well. And then the guy I was friends with one day tells me that his friend, who is 26 years old, has a 14 or 15-year-old girlfriend. I'm thinking, hell no, he does not. That is some rape and child abuse. So I go away, I report it to the police. Greater Manchester Police, they come round to my house, they take a witness statement, they go, do you know the name of the child? I'm like, no. Bear in mind, at this time, I didn't even know what a grooming gang was. I didn't even know they existed. I wasn't in this side of politics. I think I was sort of fresh out of the Labour Party. And they come back to me and they say, oh, well, we won't be investigating it. Oh, why? Oh, because you don't know the name of the child. It gets worse. A few years later, in 2018, I go to make a subject access request to get this witness statement, which I'm perfectly entitled to because it's my data. I made the statement. It is all my own words and my own account. No record of this, no trace. We haven't got a witness statement. We haven't got a crime number for this report. What are you talking about? So they covered that up. That's just one small act of covering it up. Like, it's just another example of it. And I think this was around the time the Operation Augusta report came out. But they haven't stopped doing it. This is one thing I really can't stress to people enough. People probably also think, and I think they like to think this because it excuses them from actually having to do anything or think about it. They're like, well, look, it's been in the media. There's been all these reports. You've got all these activists and campaigners talking about it and these child advocacy groups. So it won't be happening now. No, it's still happening. All of that happened. People were sacked. Reports were made. Media reports happened, and as we speak right now, Greater Manchester Police and other police forces across this country are still covering up and facilitating the rape and trafficking of children, and they're still targeting those who talk about it. It's still going on, and if anything, it's getting worse. That's just what I think about the issue.
I'll go back again. Politics. Politics, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we look at elements of the police and how liberalised they've been turned into, you know, these frilly little things that'll slut drop and do all these mad things to look like they're really hip with the people, but they're not really attacking the true element. If they're being told, if the highest elements of the police are being told on a political level to stand down from a particular crime, they will do it, won't they?
Of course,
so
yeah.
I'm not saying politicians run the police, but there's an element of politics that is running right through the police in their decision on working with certain crimes or covering certain crimes. Whereas to me, again, wipe all that away. Common sense, a crime is a crime. I know over the years, they've gone and work on targets, and I guess it's crazy how the police work. I mean, to me, they should just go out and when they hear of a bad thing that's gone on, duly investigate it and make the person accountable that's done it. There's so much grey area now with so many different crimes. I think someone covered it now that before. that the criminals do have more rights than the victim in many cases on many different crimes, which is hard again. But yeah, sorry, Ian, I'm in one of them rambling moods.
No, you're all right, mate. I was just going to come in there.
You're kind of concise and pinpoint on this.
Yeah. What it was we're talking about. We spoke about Muslim grooming gangs. We've gone about this. On the latest Sky documentary was Amber's story, a girl from Hull, and while she was in care, she was trafficked while she was in care, but not only by one Muslim gang or a British gang. It was various people, but it was helped along by the social services, who literally moved them directly to areas of concern for her. You know, it's her story, which was aired 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was, and I've spoken to her, and it's absolutely horrendous. They've not done anything to protect her, knowing she's vulnerable, knowing she's got the issues she has. They just helped her along by putting her in danger constantly. And that's the authorities that are there to protect the children.
I'll ask you both one last question. When imagine the worst to happen, they tend to overlook a lot of things, these big organizations and establishments, until the wheels fall off, where it's that publicly known that they then act like they want to make sure it never happens again. But they were quite happy to let it slide whilst people didn't know about it. Imagine it starts to come out that young children are dying from this. Then you back engineer, not only has young children died, but then you look at exactly as a timeline what any one of them individuals may have gone through over a weekly period, a monthly period. I know her, don't know her, I've never met her, but I know of a case, Ellie Williams from Barrow-in-Furness. Young girl.
That was horrendous.
I've not heard about this case.
Do you remember that case, Janelle?
Yeah.
I've not heard of it.
Oh.
Tony Bugle's working in the background with and Ellie's mum, Alison. And if anyone who knows Ellie or Alison, big hi. She was systematically groomed to the point where there was a catalogue of situations where she wasn't being believed and she was treated as a criminal, as the usual. She's inside now because of it, because of the pettiness, because of the lack of understanding of what the...
So when you say inside, do you mean in prison?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do know this case.
Yeah.
I just didn't know by name.
Yeah.
She posted stuff, injuries, let's put it that way, and the most grotesque injuries with a hammer, allegedly, right? The police have actually turned round and said, well, we have maybe reason to believe, without providing any proof, no psychological report, because she's been already psychologically passed. Nothing wrong with her. She's just gone through a lot of shit. They've turned around and maybe suggested that she might have done it to herself. Now, if anyone has seen the pictures and to suggest that anyone, I've raised this conversation with many people. Could you ever imagine a time where you would physically beat yourself with a hammer? A hammer. I think we have a human reflex towards like putting your hand in the fire, and you know what I mean? Beating yourself with a hammer, that gives you the biggest reflex, because it's not something a normal compos mentis individual will do. Even if you want to get attention, you have to be psychologically impaired to think that was a good idea. And then to be able to follow it through. Same again, you know physically what you're doing. So even if you're going to do it are you going to do it to the extent that will cause them injuries? Because they're heavy blows.
Yeah.
That's sick.
We don't want to cover it, so sorry.
That they would suggest that. It's absolutely sick, but I'm not even surprised. I mean, I'm sure both of you guys know Daniel Wollstonecraft. I interviewed him, and he said when he reported his abuse to the police, they said, well, we're not saying we don't believe you, but we're not saying that we do believe you. Even though you were underage, we think you consented to your own anal rape from your grandfather. Are they for real? If anyone else said that, people would be absolutely up in arms and disgusted. You know, this whole believe all victims culture, which is good, but obviously not taken to an extreme. But when the police say it, when the authorities say it to people, oh, that's completely fine. And I think they use it just as an excuse to not actually bother investigating the crimes. Well, if we're saying that we don't really believe the complainant, then it gives us good grounds to not actually have to do our job. The police are really only interested now in pursuing small petty crimes. So maybe, you know, a technical assault outside of a nightclub, or, you know, a malicious allegation of criminal damage from an ex. If they actually have to do any real investigating, then they absolutely cannot be bothered. And like we were saying earlier, when it comes to these matters, there is the political element of it where they absolutely do not want to acknowledge it. I mean, the other week I was supposed to go to a court case in Manchester. So it was a hearing for 8 men who were on trial for 84 counts of raping, trafficking 2 girls, 7 from Rochdale, 1 from Blackpool. I went to meet Billy at the court. He said, don't bother coming. I said, oh, why? What's happened? There was police outside of the court preventing the public from going in. And as far as I'm aware, still to this day, there is no order preventing the public from observing that case, because in English law, we have this presumption of open justice. So it's the idea that you can just go to a court case of any civil, criminal, whatever, and you can just go and observe that case. Even in cases against children where their identity is protected, you can still go and observe those cases under certain circumstances, as long as you don't expose their identity, because then it's contempt of court. But I just thought that they're doing it again, aren't they? They're trying to prevent people from observing these cases. They let one GB News reporter in. Well, what does that do? And I made a Freedom of Information request to the court, not for details about the actual case, because you can't get those through Freedom of Information requests, sorry. It was just to do with whether there's restrictions and other things around the case, and to do with why the police were there. They're meant to reply in 20 days, didn't get a response, followed up, oh, you've sent it to the wrong email address. So I sent the Freedom of Information request to the correct email address, and I've still heard nothing. And I know where this is going. It's going down the ICO route, because they just don't want to acknowledge it. So if people think that everything's fine now, it's absolutely not. I mean, I'll stop talking in a second, but I don't know if anybody's read the Operation Augusta report. I've not read the whole thing, but I've read a lot of it. And it actually says in there, if this doesn't hammer it home for people, I don't know what will, that social services knew the extent to which girls were being abused. They knew the names and addresses and locations of the offenders, but did nothing for fear of being called racist, amongst other reasons. Victoria Goglia, who was killed because of this, because of the negligence of the state, because of the negligence of the police, it says in this report, the police were privy to all of the information and still did absolutely nothing. Charlene Downs, that's another case that's extremely dodgy. It just goes on and on and on. And where does it end? What are people actually going to do to stop this? It's not enough as well to just watch these streams. It's not enough to just do streams and be like, oh, well, you know, I'm part of the group that's doing something because I subscribe to people who talk about it. No, you need to be doing something. Are you bringing legal cases? Are you delivering leaflets? Are you producing content? If you're not doing any of those things because you can't say because of your job, well, are you donating to the people that can? Because if you're just watching this content and you're not doing anything, you're just as bad as the people who hear about it and sit there and still do nothing, and you're indirectly enabling this to happen. You actually have to take positive action. Omission is just another word for enabling.
I ain't going to argue with that, Ian. Anything you want to say, mate?
No, absolutely right. I don't think I can top that, to be honest.
That's right, though, isn't it?
Hey,
what's engaged me, pal, you know?
Absolutely.
I've not been affected. Luckily, no one in my family has by this or by any forms of abuse, physical or sexual in that sense. But I don't need it to be for me to be outraged by it. What I can witness is it is going on, and it's pretty evident that it's happening a lot around the country. We're talking a lot of individuals that have been violated in this way. We're talking a hell of a lot of individuals that have played their part in it one way or the other. Grooming is one individual or maybe a couple of individuals, but when you talk about the actual violation, how many people could we actually be talking about that have perpetrated this under this quiet, let's not say nothing?
Right, you know? To think about, really, isn't it?
No, well, I don't want to either. I want to bring it back, like Janaea says, and give people a realization that this is how real this is. And there's a reason, there's an attitude, there's a sentiment, and there's a lack of respect, not only as from a female perspective, because even, let's talk about it, within the Muslim community, there'll be story upon story about the abuse, whether it's the same kind, but abuse of Muslim women. That would be natural. If they're doing this, so they're not all of a sudden go home with a bunch of flowers and everything's all right. So there's something culturally that needs to be argued on that level as well. So it's like, man, a survivor is survivor, whether they're Muslim or whether they're non-Muslim. But we have to attack this with what it actually is. These girls predominantly seem to be attacked because they are non-Muslim. And because of that, they are almost put down in the social scale, and they can be treated like that because of that. And it's sick to consider that. That should be put up with the gravity of the crime as well. And people should be allowed to say, you know what? Why can't we talk about each facet of this without being condemned for hating how many billion people around the planet? It doesn't work like that. It is getting rather boring. And whilst all that is going on, it is only getting worse. It's getting massively bigger. And you've all said, you're being complicit because you're not actually making anyone truly pay for it or telling anyone, if you're going to come to this country, if you're living in this country and you decide you want to do that, we are a country that does not tolerate it. I wouldn't tolerate it in my house. I wouldn't tolerate it in my street. If one of my mates knew of a guy that was great, I wouldn't tolerate it. So I don't get it. Don't get it. But sorry.
Can we just acknowledge as well? I mean, I'm sure people watching this stream know, and you guys will obviously know this as well. But I just think, for the sake of the possibility that one person will see this or is watching this that doesn't know about this, but not only have the police and social services and the other authorities done everything that we've talked about already in this stream, but not only that, they actually arrested some of the girls. They would arrest the girls and call them child prostitutes. And one police force, I think it was Greater Manchester Police again, they've got to be, in my opinion, the worst police force in the country, actually went to the location where girls were being not just raped, but gang raped. Underage girls were being gang raped. The fathers went there like good, decent, honourable men to go and protect and rescue their daughters. Police turned up for breach of the peace, I imagine. I'm sure that's what it was. And they actually arrested the dads, or threatened to arrest the dads, and allowed the gang raping of the girls to continue in the flats. I mean, is this serious? One thing I actually wanted to do, and again, I don't know if you guys have heard of a guy called Crime Bodge. I know I've mentioned him to Phil quite a bit. But I spoke to somebody from Maggie Oliver's foundation, and we were actually looking at bringing private prosecutions against some of the officers that have been involved in this, but it didn't transpire for various different reasons. But as far as I'm concerned, that is actually still a primary motive of mine. If I can get the funds to have the time to put into this to privately prosecute some of the officers involved, I absolutely will. Because another point I'll make is human rights lawyers specialise pretty much in civil law. That is their area of law. So, for example, you might go and have an operation with the NHS and they will knock out one of your teeth, so they sue for negligence and you just get money. It's the same in this case. You will sue and you will just get money. But what is the ultimate justice in the legal system? It's to be prosecuted. So as far as I'm concerned, until I'm adept and competent in private prosecutions, it's really not good enough, because I think that's the best possible thing that we can actually do to get justice for these people. The reports aren't enough. The media attention's not enough. It's all facade. I see these people in court. I want them exposed. I want us to know who they are. I want them prosecuted, and I want to make sure that they can never, ever work in positions where vulnerable people are ever again. It is the only answer, to make sure the offenders are prosecuted and the authorities involved. That must, in my opinion, be the ultimate goal. How realistic is that? I don't know, because it will take a lot of resources and manpower, but I think anything less than that is not satisfactory.
Well said, Janaya.
Thank you.
Absolutely. If you want to trip up to Hull at any time, please call in and see me. I think we could have a good chat here.
I did say that to you, didn't I? You know?
Yeah.
Janaya and I have had a chat in the background, and Janaya really would like to, if she can, get involved in any facet that she can. I mean, she's a young, busy lady that's moving and shaking as well. But particularly with her expertise, I'd say certainly embrace that. You know, we all kind of need to do a little bit more of this and embrace people's traits and
absolutely
use that in a sense to all become a little bit stronger. There's many things that I lack that Janaya, boom, she's on it. There's many things that I'll be excelling in that Janaya, boom, you know.
That's
Janaya
the
doesn't,
benefit of a team,
Janaya doesn't eat butter beans like I eat butter beans, Ian. Let's get back on that. But, you know, I think this is what it's like, you know, from afar you can do so much, you know, and this is probably going to wrap it up to a bike ride. I've only met you a couple of times, mate. I heard about the story. I've watched some of the Sky reports. I've read through some of Operation Marksman, most of it. I've seen the end result. And particularly when I've looked in the whites of the eyes of the survivors, it's not only believable, it's a travesty that they've got no accountability and no one in Hull is prepared to really own it and stand up. You know, and it was very disappointing to hear what happened with Cornerstone.
Corner House.
Yes, mate, that was sickening.
Yeah.
You know, but that kind of takes us exactly back to where we was at the very beginning. You know, the politicization of this. Look at it. You've got a charity that will work with them, but they don't want to be acknowledged to be with this group. We don't want to be acknowledged to take that money from there. Why? You're all about working with people, so it's clear you don't want to stand on anyone's toes. And why should it be like that when it's about abuse? Abuse is abuse. I couldn't tell my daughter, well, listen, you know, I don't want to hear it because the person that's done it is this type of person. The person that's done it is like, fucking hell. Man, my daughter's then got to grow up with that knowledge. So that's only what a survivor would think. So,
do you know one thing? Oh, sorry, can I just jump in there? Just one thing that did come to light. One of the things that the police did say, if they had any new evidence of new victims, in their words, they would re-look at the case again. Why on earth would any survivor victim of child grooming gangs in Hull put themselves forward just to go through all the shit again? You know, is this what they're actually trying to do? Yeah. If they don't do anything, people are thinking, well, there's no point in saying anything because nothing will happen anyway.
Yeah.
And as far as it's gone in the corner, then it's not in the public eye. You know, is that what their actual motive is? Is that what they're thinking?
Well, it's going to be one of the scariest prospects, isn't it, mate? I mean, coming from a position of trying to think about it like a survivor, whether it be male or female, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where's the bottom line is, who are you going to talk to? Even if you tell your best friend, making that move to talk to someone professional about it it's a big, big thing. It can't be underestimated. This is not like just being robbed on the street where a police going, that bitch over there, you know, meaning a guy, that guy over there has just done me over. That guy over there has got my mobile phone. We can all quite easily do that. But when someone's been violated in this way, particularly a young lady, emotionally, psychologically, a lot happens. And also as well, the shame of it, even though there's no shame, there'll be elements of a lot of survivors will feel that they can't speak to their nearest and dearest because in some ways I feel humiliated that it's happened to me. I feel humiliated that I'm having to talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth here, but I can understand that concept. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry, I'm fucking ranting again. I'm
to be honest as well, this is purely opinion, but I'm not convinced that the police would re-look at the cases. I think that's, again, something that they just say to seem reasonable in the same, I say reasonable, but it doesn't sound reasonable, in the same way that they say, well, I know you were 14 years old, but we think you consented to your own incestuous rape. You know, it's just an excuse to not do anything. I think if you presented them with more evidence, they would at least pretend to look at it so that they can pretend they've done something. But I think the better use of any money would be to do a private prosecution. Go after the individuals yourself, instruct your own legal team. If people want to go after certain authority figures, same with that. Because the problem you've got with state prosecutions is everything obviously is in the hands of the state. So it's up to the police to decide whether they actually want to do the work to get the evidence. And then the CPS have to conduct the full code test. So when they do that, when they decide whether to charge someone, it's got two limbs. So the first limb is whether there's a realistic prospect of a successful conviction, and the second limb is whether it's in the public interest. And now most cases pass the second limb. Most, if someone's violent, or especially in this case, it's going to be in the public interest to prosecute that person. But if you can't pass the first limb, then the second limb's completely irrelevant because both of them must be satisfied. So that's why a lot of rape cases will fail to be fair to the CPS, because it's very hard one-on-one to actually get that evidence where you think, yes, we can actually convict them, because they go, well, they just consented. The example I'm using there is sort of maybe like a grown woman and a grown man, not this type of offence where the girls are also underage and where no one is consenting to their own trafficking, are they? Let's be realistic. But again, going back to what we've spoken about, they don't want to prosecute these kinds of cases. If you come to them with this kind of case, you're an inconvenience and a menace to them. And I'm sure from the second the words come out of your mouth, they go into defense cover-up kind of mode. So I think using, obviously it's everyone's decision who's fundraising and who's leading it, but I think raising money to give evidence to the police is almost futile. I think it would be better getting those investigators and those solicitors to get the evidence, and then you initiate the private prosecution yourself. But one more thing I will say, this great legal system, when you initiate prosecution, the CPS have the power to take over that prosecution and they can discontinue it. But they might be hesitant to do that because it would look awful.
How it looks. How about doing the right thing? The right thing looks beautiful. You know what I mean? Doing right thing by people. If I go to the police, I want to know that justice is done. I want to know that they've done the right thing by me, the right thing by my family, whatever all concerned. We're paying for them. So there's so much damage that could be done, me as an individual, but as a community as well, if you feel that justice has not been done. And as much as we'll admire police, and police do good work in many ways, it has to be said. I don't agree with people shouting paedophile protectors at just random police. I mean, that's taking the argument too far, and that's probably one way how they're not going to listen to you, because you can't general sweep anyone. You know what I mean? I learned that a long time ago. But what we do know is that there's many decent police, but there are police that have got it wrong. And whether it's down to training, whether it's whatever it's down to, whether it's down to conditioning within the actual force itself, we hear on so many different levels that these guys, they don't always get it right. So if we can sense that, you lose credibility, you lose confidence. If you've got that lack of confidence and then wanting to cover this, then where does that leave a section of society?
Exactly.
That is what's worrying about this.
Yeah.
I'll probably go back to what I was saying before. Where can you see it bloody going? As much as the crime will keep going on, the damage it will do to the wider society, the confidence it will have, and how it's going to make a generation, multi-generation feel about this not being covered properly. I'm going to start. I'm bleeding ranting tonight.
Must be nerves because of tomorrow, mate.
I think it is, yeah. It's all the emotion. We just want pissing justice. I mean, that sums
That's all
it
we
up.
want. Yeah. I was just looking at that, yeah.
Then you know, then, don't you? You know, if someone's done something wrong, you want to know that, you know, and because I think it's because this is such a type of crime. To not have justice on such a type of crime, it's inexplicable, really.
Absolutely.
Not asked about the demographic, the freaking faith, but we have to talk about an elephant that's in the room, because anyone would say, if you're looking for a murder, let's do the psychological profile. That means you break it down exactly what's been going on and where you can see that at and how they think and how that. No one's done that with this. It's too scary information. That's all it is. It's going to say something within the numbers that doesn't back their story or doesn't justify them not really talking about it in the way that it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
So, Ian, mate, I am so. In fact, you know what do you think about the whole ride and everything? Do you think I'm just as mad as my wife thinks I am?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a really admirable thing to do. Going back to what we said before, or what I said before, not we, I. A lot of people are just very lazy and they don't want to do anything. So I think it's nice that you've combined a hobby and a passion and something that you wanted to do with actually doing something that's useful and productive. So yeah, it's good.
Nice one. And that's all it is, isn't it? It started off a very selfish pursuit. I want to do this, you know. But then I've seen it and I thought, well, something good can come out of this, you know. And the love I've got, the excitement, honestly, to have a day off tomorrow, Janaea, and to be able to just travel to, all I've got to do is get to the campsite. How I get there, obviously going to be by bike. I've got no real time constraints, although I don't want to take all day, but I'm probably going to get there early evening. I could see so much in between all that. If I go in a car, I can't be saying to the wife, just stop here. I want to just have a look at that tree over there. Just stop here. Just sit on that bench. I want to go and eat my lunch or something. You know what I mean? You just tend to go, boom. And if you sat in the car with the wife's like, no, we're going. We'll be home now. We'll be here in a minute. We're here. So you never get to say nothing. So I'm like, no, this is where you've got total freedom, total liberty, just to go from A to B, because that's all it is. But be able to do what you want and not have a doctor's appointment, not have my kids to pick up, not have the tea to have on the table by 7 o'clock. Got to thank the wife because she's not giving me any pressure. She said, I think you're off your head, but I'll support you all the way. She's even helped me with the attire and whatnot. She knows I'm losing money by doing this because I should be working. She's not once said, what are you doing? You know? So, you know, I'm infused. I'm excited. And I think it's because it's something I love doing. I know you're getting into hiking now, aren't you, Janaea?
Yes, I've been doing that for quite a while, actually. So, yeah, I love hiking. I'm the worst, though. Like, I'm so weak. I don't even think it's that I'm unhealthy. I think I'm just really weak. And I see 50-year-olds surpassing me, and I'm stopping every 5 seconds. So, still do it, though.
Well, you know what? Why not? It's not an age thing. You know, it's funny, isn't it? Because I see a lot of ramblers, a lot of people do orientating, rather, a lot of people that do hiking, camping, all that kind of stuff. And people can tend to stereotype on that. And I find it so refreshing when you've got a young couple or a young guy or a young lady like yourself that just does it and not think, well, I'm not going to do that because it looks like you've got to be kind of over 60 to be in this club. You just do your own thing, don't you?
Yeah.
Like anyone else. And I guarantee, the crazy thing is, Janaea, you'll be up a mountain. You'll be looking at cascading mountains, rolling hills, whatever, enjoying that beauty, knowing that it's doing something in there, right? The person who gets here at 68, just retired, thinking, thank the Lord, I'm up here, not in work anymore. Where you wouldn't have a connection, instantly you'll have a connection because you're like, that's beautiful, that, isn't it?
It's a very nice view.
And it's like, this is what I love. It just, passions bring people together that probably wouldn't be together anyway. You know, and even if it doesn't have that connection, it's doing so much for you as an individual.
That's true. I went up Ingleborough the other day, and in the cave, White Scar Cave, my legs are extremely sore. Actually, it's kind of relevant to the stream. I don't want to go off on a tangent because I know we have to end it. But
I can't end it. I'm sorry. One of you is just gonna. You both just got to go. Bill, fuck off. Sorry.
But this guy who did the tour, he just came out and was like, "Oh, I used to be a firefighter. Oh, I used to be a psychologist." And he said he worked with sexual offenders, the actual offenders, and also the victims, which is interesting because I know some people can only work with one side and some people can't deal with the offenders because they find it that abhorrent. But he said he had a special license from the Home Office that was something to do with confidentiality, and there's only about 30 to 36 of them issued in the country. I don't know the name of it. I've never heard of this before, so I can't elaborate on it, but I thought that was really interesting. And yeah, maybe somebody wants to research that, but you know, I might end up going back to that cave because I'll be like, you sound really interesting to talk to.
Wow. Wow. There's so much going on here. So what?
Yeah.
Janaea, I would really love to have you back. We could go into your website a little bit more. And plus, if we've got the time, we actually spoke about it in the background. Ian, now you're here, it'd be great for you to hear this. At some point, can't guarantee when, but when both Janaea and I can get the time, we'd both love to be able to come up to Hull and do a series of interviews, either with yourself or just with other key members in your organisation, particularly any survivors that want to speak as well. We can just either I do the interviewing, you know, Janaea will do the camera work, vice versa, whatever, probably a bit of both anyway, and just try and cover it, you know, a bit more.
No, that'd be absolutely super. Yeah, I'll speak to the admin team and I'll mention it to the girls. And obviously, you're going to see most of them on Saturday anyway, so we can discuss that a little further. Yeah, definitely, it'll be much appreciated for all the help we get. Really, you know. Absolutely.
Talk about a bigger story, mate. Right, with that, Ian, I'm going to let you get going, mate, because it's been on quite a while, and I'm sorry to kind of go on and on.
Always a pleasure, mate.
So I'm going to see you on Saturday, yeah?
Yeah, I'll speak to you beforehand. What time are you setting off in the morning?
Saturday morning, it depends on a couple of factors. What time I get up is a good one, but we've got to do breakfast and then pack down. Now, I'm hoping to get all that wrapped up by 11ish.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to be on the road by 11ish. If that's the case, we're probably looking 3 hours, I think, to the final destination. So I'm probably looking about 2 to 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
but that may change as well, Ian. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we'll be in touch along the route, and then we'll, like I said before, we'll get somebody to come and meet you and take you through the easiest way into the place. Yeah.
Excellent, mate. Thank you very much, sir. You have a pleasant evening, and I'll
thank you, and thank you, Janaea. Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you.
You as well. Take care.
Bye.
You know, see you later. Ta-ra, mate. Right, Janaea, any last words before I call it a day on this stream? I've got to jump up in the attic and grab all my camping gear.
Oh God, I'm kind of jealous. I've got an advocacy exam like any time now, so I've got to record myself presenting. I don't even know the exact specifics of it. Representing a client in court, and I've got to submit that. So I guess the last thing I'll say is I'll just speak briefly about my websites, seeing as it's already on the screen. So yeah, I'm guessing people who are watching this don't actually know who I am. So yeah, basically I'm Janaea, and this should have gone at the start of the stream, but I've been doing this now for about 5 years. I'm training to be a lawyer, and I set up this website called beyondthepowers.co.uk. And this was inspired by a good friend of mine called Crime Watch, who people probably do know he runs a very successful YouTube channel. It's probably, and website, it's probably the most successful and well-known anti-policing corruption website and channel in the country. So it was inspired by him. I think it actually says that on the website. And essentially what I'll be posting on this is articles. So some of them are a bit more clickbait, for want of a better term. They're not clickbait, they are actually useful and have good content in them. There's an interview on there, and there'll be other articles on there, such as talking about political policing and things like that. I think that's the next one that I'll be working on. There are videos on there. There's obviously a donate button on there. I should say, actually, thank you to everyone who donated for this website, because it actually cost a lot of money to set up. I designed it myself, but the hosting and domain registrar that I used was quite expensive. And there's also a get help section. Now, I will just say that is £35. Now, I think some people think this is a money-making endeavour. This is not a business. There's a couple of reasons that I'm charging for that. So first of all, the reason I'm charging is because for the last 5 years, I've been helping people for free. And a lot of people that will take advice for free don't actually follow through on what they want you to do, or they'll just be rude about it. So one guy, I spent 30 to 40 minutes drafting something for him, and he didn't even say thank you. I was like, I'm just not doing this anymore. Obviously, the older I get, the busier I'm getting. And if I'm working on this website, that means I have to take time away from actual work, so I'm making less money. Also, the website itself is not self-sustaining financially. Money does have to go into it, and also into the YouTube channel and the interviews. So the money that comes from that essentially goes back into the website and into the channel and into the activism. It's not me stacking cash in my bank account ready to turn up with a Gucci belt. So yeah, that's the purpose of that on the website. I just thought I would explain that, because I think some people are being a bit funny about it. But yes, that is the website.
I mean, just to put in there, people do have assumptions and jump the gun. They'll assume all types that you must be creaming loads of money with that donation button. But I'm glad you actually broke down there just a little bit of what it entails to do that. And this is a non-profit thing, so everything that you're doing requires time, requires effort and resources. You need to be able to get, so it's you've got to put that in the mix, and then look at the person. If the person's walking around with big Gucci and like a pimp hat and a big gold chain, you think maybe they're making money off this. But if you just thought about it, you've got the right intentions, you're covering the stories that, need covering, that particularly with the police, I just spoke about it, they don't want accountability. And if they do, they whisper it out when they say they're sorry. Because they don't want to say it from the rooftops that, we did F up, and because of this, maybe hundreds of people, thousands of people, whatever, has to be known. We have to know this, because if they're not guilted into seeing that they're doing wrong, then how is it going to change, So there does seem to be a culture that seems to be kind of overlooked, that people like yourself, people like Crime Bodge will get involved and go, yeah, I can see what you're doing. I can see how you could be handling that arrest better. I can see how you could be handling that confrontation better. You could have a bit more people skills. You could be better trained or whatever. Most people don't get it, because they automatically think, in many cases, if the police come approach you, then you're in the wrong. And that's not
no smoke without fire.
Exactly. It's not always the case. A lot of the time, it comes down to the conduct of the policeman, who's probably overreached from the moment they engaged, and then can't even stop overreaching because they don't know. It's their attitude. So it's important to have people like you on that's talking about this and doing what you're doing, and people have got to acknowledge, your time ain't for free.
I think as well, someone said that to me. They tweeted me a long time follower. She was like, "Why have you been giving your time away for free? That's insane." I was like, I don't know, because I want to help and I just enjoy it. But also, I think it's important to say it's not even just about raising money to sustain the website and the channel as it is. I have big plans for what I want to do with this, but again, it all costs money, and it's like, yeah, I can put my own money into it, and I do. I've never actually made a profit from this, but it needs more money than what I can afford to put into it. So I want to do things such as I want to do sit-down interviews. I don't want to give things away, but MPs have surgeries. There's court cases that I want to physically go and cover, that type of thing. But that costs money to go and travel to the places. And there's a lot of cases where I will actually need a cameraman. So the channel and the website and, well, me are not fulfilling the full potential because money just stops us doing it. So it's a case of hopefully raising money for that. And if people are using the Need Help service, it's a case of they're not just giving money away for free, so to speak. They're actually getting something in return. But a lot of people have messaged me since I put this on the website. And some people might be wondering why there's not a contact us page. There was, but people were circumventing the Need Help page, even though that's the obvious one to click on because it says, do you need help? And just messaging me with their issues, thinking that I somehow would then just ignore the fact that they'd failed to pay the fee. So if people do message me and they don't pay the fee, I just won't reply. I'm far too busy to do that. And I also think it shows a lack of respect for what it is that like people like us are trying to do. If you're just purposely circumventing the payment so that you can get advice free. I can't sit there. And the one other thing I will say as well, people aren't just messaging me saying, for example, oh, I've been arrested, shall I speak to the police? Yes or no? Okay, I'm not going to charge someone 35 quid to ask me a question like that. People send me copious amounts of documents. I mean, pages of stuff that will take a few hours to look through. Do you know how much I can charge via a firm when I'm fully qualified? In the region of £500 per hour. So this is cheap.
Shit. So listen, this stream would have cost me 750 quid. Bleeding hell, Janea. There's no way I'm paying that, you know. You're gonna have to take me to court. Right, I'll fucking move out of the country. You ain't getting 750 quid out of me for the stream.
Yeah, Phil, you'll be getting a CCJ through your door now.
It'll be me on your website getting the shit kicked out of me, man. Please, like, give it a second.
Yeah, you're gonna be this guy.
No, jokes aside, it's important work what you're doing, and people have got to acknowledge it and support it rather than just point the finger, you know, just look at the individual. Well, I might not like that individual, so let me build or let me character assassinate them, which will justify my position. We've seen it all over the years. People have totally got the wrong end of the stick out of both of us over the years. And many people that we know, we've seen people that have literally been humdrum and quartered online that we've known and respected. We've seen it all. So I'm only talking from experience here. Probably, I wouldn't like to say a veteran because that sounds bad, but in terms of online and all the situations, we pretty much are. We've seen it all. And I guess it's because of the genre that we were covering. You know, we could have been influencers in so many different other genres that were just nice and frilly and light and never
made loads of money.
you know? Well, go what you were saying there, and then I will call it a day. The money angle. When people say, if it's not, you know, why give up your time for free? Well, man, what I'm doing tomorrow has cost me more money to organise than what I'm actually raising for charity or for these two great causes.
Yeah.
So, of course, that's not worth it. But then I look at it and think, well, of course it is. All right, it might cost me a day's wage here. It might cost me getting a new set of tyres there. It might cost me getting a new outfit, a bit of food, and all that together. Yeah, it won't cover it. But then look what I'm actually doing. I can afford to do this. It won't be pretty. Might have to tighten my belt, but I will be all right. And come next week, the week after, it'll just be a memory. But look what I'm doing. Look what I'm trying to do. Look what people want to do. So when you look at that, you think, for me, that is worth the money. My mates can't understand it in work. Like, you're taking a day off to do this. You're not getting any money back. You're not getting... And it's almost like, right, he's just on a bit of a mad one. No, it's not. It's just wanting to use the traits that I've got, get an absolute buzz out of it, show a bit of awareness, and get people actually infused into something rather than just negative live streams or just getting angry online. It's doing something, seeing a bit of the world or seeing a bit of that part of the world that's leading up to Hull. it ticks so many different boxes. But I guess in many ways, if it's not sensationalistic, then it might not tick that box. But I'm glad it doesn't tick that box, because that's a dirty, horrible box to be in. And we know what it's like being sat around people that do that shizzle.
Yeah, people don't get it. I had an interview with a mainstream journalist once, and she actually said to me, the money issue came up, not in a prodding way, I think it actually just sort of came up naturally. And I'd mentioned that I actually lose money by doing this. And she said, oh, she said, really? She said, why do you do it? And then she mentioned somebody else and said, she's making a lot of money, like she's very rich from doing this. She said, why do you bother doing it? And I explained, and she was genuinely shocked that losing money wasn't an issue to me. But I do think as well, again, a lot of the prominent people are just grifters, for want of a better term. And the reason they're so famous is because they've treated this like a business and enacted a marketing strategy. And that's why they're so well known, because they know attention equals money. So that's why you know who they are. So then the people sort of lower down who don't, like, everyone realistically knows you need money to do stuff. They know you do. And if you're doing stuff like this, which is not for profit, there's nothing wrong in asking for donations. You're not holding a gun to everyone's head and saying, oh, donate to me, I'm going to beat you up. Do you know what I mean? It's all voluntary and they can see where the money's going. But yeah, people, there's a lot of people that do grift and just do want it for the money. But in my case, that isn't the case. I've sort of explained what the money's for. You know, I've got a career, I've got my own, you know, business endeavors going on, so I don't need this to actually fund any part of my lifestyle. And you know, when I'm further progressed in my career and other things that I'm doing, there's a good chance that I won't even actually need the donations potentially, because I'll be financially stable enough to just sort of fund it. For me, it's not a good thing having to ask for donations. I don't like it, because first of all, I feel cheeky. I think, oh, I hope people look at the work that I'm doing and think it was worth that 50 quid that they've just sent me. And I don't like being put in a category with other people who exploit people for money, which is inevitable when you do ask for money online. And, you know, you're not registered on Companies House. People can't have a good look through your accounts and see exactly where the money's going. So I do it out of necessity. It's not something that I actually like.
Yeah, well, we've seen people that have literally made PayPal, made getting donations a dirty thing to do, because they have literally spoiled it. You know, it only takes the little to spoil it for a lot of people, innit, you know? So in many ways, I can understand why people are guarded. But yeah. And in, obviously, with what's going on now, the economic crisis that we're all going through, no one's kind of not getting away with it, because everyday items have just rocketed up. Everything's rocketed up, so everyone is paying more. Some may find it easier to still exist, but we've got to acknowledge the people that won't through all this as well. So it's hard to come out on here and go, you know what, give us some money for this, give us some money for that, you know. But at least it's great to have that support, knowing that people have had faith in you and give you the money because they believe that you're going to do and try and do the right thing for it. And, you know, there's elements in society, there's stories, whatever genre you may cover, they feel that, you know, you're doing a good job in that fight. You know, when, like I say, there's an element of vets about this, that you feel that you're a bit long in the tooth. Now there's so much shit that you've seen over the years doing this, and that there's probably a lot that doesn't surprise you anymore. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to wrap it up. I've got your mate who's just pulled up there now. One thing I will say, Janae, I'll put that link in. How can people find you, whether it be your website or whatever forums, you know?
So the website's obviously beyondthepowers.co.uk or beyondthepowers.com. If you type my name, Janaea, into any platform, it's so rare you're going to find me. So yeah, that's how you can find me. I have a YouTube channel, I have Twitter, I have Instagram, I have Facebook, etc.
Absolute pleasure, Janaea, having you here, giving your insight. It's been very refreshing. There might be a lot of people on here that, you know, I haven't seen you in ages and thought, Jesus Christ.
She's alive.
Where's she been? Gone on there. So it's nice to get, you know, get us back out together and chatting and stuff.
Yes.
So I'm hoping
I feel optimistic.
Yeah, Well, you've set up, you're doing, you're moving on, you've started your own little thing going there, and it's probably something we all need to get to, our own little thing, instead of following. Go with your passion, go with your love, be you, and boom, if it doesn't work, it don't work. You go back to what you were doing, then you've not lost anything because you've not been fake, you've not done it for the wrong reasons. People didn't get it, people don't understand, then whatever. But honestly, you're doing a great job.
The last thing I will say, and this is the last thing because I also have to go, is when I say I feel optimistic, I don't just mean about the website and things like that, but just, sort of the campaigning going forward, doing the interviews, working with you, working with these guys. I love the fact that they're looking at getting lawyers involved to progress things and get justice for the survivors and things like that. Also, Crime Bodge is coming back. Everyone knows how much I love Crime Bodge. I'm a good friend of his, but I'm also a massive fan. So, I'm so excited that he's coming back because he's, as far as I'm concerned, essential in police accountability in this country. I've learned so much from him. I see him kind of as a mentor. So I think he's also going to be of great use to us with all this kind of stuff. And I've also been working on a project with him, but I'm not allowed to say what it is because he'll kill me. So yeah, there's good things coming up.
Well, keep me posted. You're welcome on here anytime. And obviously, hopefully, we'll work together doing little bits and bobs when we can get together and do it. Janae, you have a great evening, whatever you get up to tonight.
You too. It's all work. Wish me luck. I need luck.
Well, you know what they say? All work and no play makes Janae a very dull girl. Have you ever heard that one?
I mean, yeah. I like the sound of that. It's a good excuse for me to now go and put in a big pizza and have a break for an hour.
Right, get the disco ball on, crank the music up, just have a little bit of a party for half an hour, even if it's just you in there. You know what I mean? Stop it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Janae, thanks a lot for your time anyway. You take care, yeah?
You too, and good luck with the ride. I may end up in Hull on Saturday. I don't know if you heard my voice note, but I may end up in Hull on Saturday if I can get across. I'm in a weird part of the country. I'm not going to say where I am, and please don't say because I like to keep my location kind of anonymous. But if I can get across, I will come.
If not, there'll be another time. You heard Ian, he's well up for it. He'll have a bit of, hopefully, grease the skids so we can go up there, do a bit of work up there for him as well.
Sounds good.
Yes,
right, well, speak to you soon then.
Have a great night. See you later.
Too. Take care. Bye.
Right, guys. That's it all kind of taken care of. This was supposed to be half an hour stream. 1 hour, 40 minutes, Paddy. I said
to me?
No, I am now.
Right. You said, right, guys. I thought you were talking.
Well, I'm talking to these, but I'm talking to you.
This
is Paddy, the other guy that's going to be coming on the bike ride. Yes, Paddy.
Can't see nobody.
There's people on there.
All right, you can hear me, right? I thought I could see faces.
No, mate, nothing like that. I've just had a guest on.
All right.
I had 2 guests on, Ian and Janaea. So, yes. Right, I'm going to get going, mate. Got a personal friend here who's going to be part of the big ride tomorrow, so can't wait for that. Don't forget, tomorrow from roughly 12 to 1 o'clock, I'll be starting the journey from Debdale Park in Stockport. If you would like to tune in and watch various streams during the day at different points of the journey, have a look on the Red Pill Phil on Facebook. I'll be doing intermittent streams there when I can. Can't do it while I'm riding, but I'll be able to do it when I've stopped and moved further on. When we get to campsite, we're doing a little bit of a stream. And obviously, when the whole thing is done, there's going to be a video to collate all the footage I've got. So it's going to be an interesting 24 hours. So let's see what happens, and let's see who can get there and who's going to end up getting a lift or getting a train.
Right, how are you doing?
Just me and you, mate. Yeah. At the moment.
Well, you say there's someone else there.
Well, I might be seconding anyone to get me out of that predicament. Who knows? So it's going to be exciting, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Just thought I'd check in. A big hi to Katie Jane Swallow and all the Children's Matter News. I know. I need to get into bed. I've not even got my camping stuff out yet, dude.
Oh, well,
I've been
got to go to the trailer, have you?
No. It's up in the attics. Everything I need's there. There's food. I've been cooking. Mate, I've been on it. And I thought I'd do a stream. It was supposed to be half an hour, but now it's 1 hour, 50 minutes.
Well, I've got this off the phone.
Might need that. Do you remember, guys, the location on Saturday will be here. New Trinity Club is at 261 South Coast Lane, HU93TS. I might have butchered that. Saturday the 25th, that's the day we're going to get there. Barbecue from 12 o'clock. I will be arriving from the Manchester to Hull, sponsored Bike Ride. And obviously, this is all in aid of United, Hull, and Ethan's journey. They're the two main great causes. If you go on my Facebook, you'll see links to donate if you can donate. And with that, guys, thank you very much. And one last thing I've got to say. I love you all, even the pissing haters. Get on that.
I love you. 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 I love you.
Even the pissing haters.
I love you. 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 I love you.